Welcome to Your Story is Your Strength podcast, a podcast about how your story or journey through life, its events and activities, is your strength. What is storytelling and how can your story become your strength? Thank you for joining us today for episode 2, Creating Connections with Storytelling. I'm Sarah Locke, your host, and today I'd like to get to know each other. I'll go first and look forward to your comments, likes, and shares. If you have a story to share, please reach out. Storytelling draws people in. They want to know, learn, and hear more. They become invested in your story, in you. People are inquisitive. The question becomes, what and how much do I share? It's a personal preference. As I am authentic and transparent to a flaw, I tend to overshare in my actual honest opinion. But to know my story is to know me, all of the chapters. And a great storyteller makes you feel welcome to ask questions, dig deeper, and not feel awkward or like you're overstepping. Sort of an open book feeling, an open door policy. Come on in, take a look around, and get comfortable. I'm here to share. I'm here to educate. My storytelling comes natural to me, but I have honed the skill over time. I share best with an engaging audience. And it sort of makes this podcast especially hard for me because I can't see heads nodding, hear the compassionate sigh, or even your belly laughs. I'm just going to go ahead and assume you're out there and that you're an engaging listener, so I'm going to continue. Storytelling can be hard, but only if you don't have a story to tell. And we all have stories. You just might need to think a little and do some soul searching. I have several stories, and it's all in your delivery that the story can really help you make connections. Depending on how much detail from that story you tell determines the strength of that connection. Your stories make you memorable. I have people that I've met months ago or years ago, and upon reintroduction, they say, "Oh yeah, I know. You're the girl that hiked to that mountaintop and raised a lot of money for multiple sclerosis." It's not that they remember all the details. It's that they remembered me and some of the details. Now we can continue to grow our connection, our relationship. Selling is a storytelling opportunity. I sell myself and my story daily. I want to inspire others by sharing. Whether it's a story of my MS diagnoses and how the horrible news and its everlasting effect on my body changed my life for the better, or the not so beautiful birth experience of my daughter. If you know, you know, and maybe that's a topic for its own episode. But I want to educate and inspire others from my life's experience because my common tagline is, you can't make this shit up. When I was diagnosed with MS in the fall of 2019, it was the scariest news I've ever received. I had lost the feeling and become numb and tingly from my chest down. It was getting worse by the day, and there was an even ever so engaging squeeze around my core that seemed to be taking my breath away. It was so tight. It was actually making me gasp. I later learned it's called the MS hug, and I strongly think we should rename it. It's not cute or comforting like a hug should be in any way. It was with a few MRIs that my doctor was able to clearly see it was demyelization at my T2. My immune system was attacking my body, and for the lack of a simpler expression, my wires were becoming frayed. The connection points from my brain to my legs wasn't working. It was scary stuff. My life was put on pause and someone pushed fast forward all at the same time. I couldn't see my future anymore, but I had to quickly absorb this news and learn all I could about how to fix, stop, and move forward with these cards that I'd been dealt. I took a few days to digest what had happened, what it meant, and then in true Social for Sarah style, shared the news on social media. Numerous people commented, shared their experiences, and called me. Some of these people I'd never met in person, but they felt the need to express their concern and care as they'd been following me in my fitness journey and knew this impacted my level of activity I'd be doing. These were connections that I made, people that even though they never met me wanted to help me in any way they could. That is the power of storytelling. I'm always sharing my story, my journey through life. The true power of my connections, my network, or my tribe, if you would, was shown when in the following June, I decided to go ahead with my regularly scheduled program of hiking Mount Washington, the highest peak in Northeast. It had been on my list of things to do and actually scheduled for the month after I was diagnosed. But since I couldn't feel my legs, I felt, of course, it unsafe to attempt. But as my body regained some of the control and the steroid treatment settled my what's called a flare, I decided to reschedule my hike. I would have a solid plan. I would have strong hiking friends to go along to help me if I got weak, support me, and carry things if I couldn't. I planned to have a relief vehicle at the top to bring me down if I couldn't descend and my legs were exhausted. My life had turned itself into a multi-plan functionality. I needed a plan A now, a plan B, and sometimes a complete bailout of what I was about to be doing. My body was now calling the shots. But my biggest reason for my hike was to raise awareness for MS. I turned my hike into a way of delivering a message, telling my latest story, and all the proceeds would go to the National MS Society because my driving force in life just became to find a cure for MS, and in my lifetime. I shared on social media my donate page. I shared the preparation being made, the condo we were staying in, the trails being reviewed, the weather conditions being watched very closely. And I shared every step of the way for my audience, for my connections. And right at dawn, when we hit the trailhead, I shared one final post about my hopes of returning to the bottom that evening and sharing my success with them all. I was hoping to raise $5,000. It was at $8,000 before I left that morning, and when I returned exhausted and completely spent physically and emotionally, it was a smidge over $10,000. Tears came streaming down my face as I was only one person and had just made an impact. My mind went quickly to how I could make a bigger impact. Hint, it takes a community, and it's turned into an annual event called Climb the Peak for MS. And you can check out my blog on iworkout.biz, yes, .biz, if you want to learn more details about how to join or support the cause. And you can mark your calendar because it's already got a date, June 9th, 2024, and it's in Henniker, New Hampshire. Last year, we raised over $16,000, and this year we're striving for larger sponsorships, more donations, and $20,000 to help find a cure. My stories and my ability to tell them well is how I made this happen. It's how I hope to grow this event. There is so much more to that story, but I could go on forever sharing all the wonderful details of how MS has caused me to become a stronger, more determined person, a mother that leads by example and shows empathy for others, and a friend that pushes herself but also knows when to ask for help. But for today, I hope I made a connection with you and showed my willingness to accept, my ability to overcome, and my drive to make the lives of those with MS better. What kind of storyteller are you? And when I say that, I'm really asking, how vulnerable do you make yourself in your life's journey? I find vulnerability opens people's feelings. It's awkward and hard to share, but that story turned to vulnerability, that's where feelings are unleashed, both for the storyteller and those listening. Connections are then made at that point. Bonds are sometimes built with connections like this, and our supporters are born. Advocates that will support, share, and help deliver your message. How many connections have you made? How deep are those connections? I'll leave you to ponder that for today. Until next time, own your story, tell it well, be vulnerable, and share it often.